best podcast, The Idlecast.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Scott McDermott.
I was bit by a black widow in Hamul in my sleep.
Harrison Perkins.
Every muscle in my body is clenching right now.
And
Scott Clark.
You know, I would like to get to know a tarantula.
their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
We'll do it live. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Harrison is dancing.
I know what you're thinking.
What am I thinking? Yes, exactly. You know what I'm thinking, yes.
I don't, but that's what Magnum always said at the
Exactly,
beginning
yeah.
of the episode.
That
So
Higgins wouldn't approve.
somebody needed to say it.
That's right. I know what you're thinking. Higgins wouldn't approve of what I'm about to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. Improbably climb over a fence and evade two vicious dogs, potentially vicious dogs. Quick pop quiz. What are the names of the dogs?
Zeus and Apollo.
Zeus and Apollos.
Zeus and Apollo. Very good.
And the car is Robin 1.
Yeah, well, very good. The actor who played Higgins was actually from Texas, I think. I can't think of his name. Oh, I almost had it. Oh, it flashed right in front of me and I didn't grab it when I went around. My memory's like a carousel. Things go around and you have to grab it when it comes by. If you don't, it's gone. I can't think of his name, but he was a great character actor. And he was actually from Texas.
John Hillerman.
John Hillerman, yes. He played a bad guy in a lot of Westerns and things. So I don't know, that might have been his only sort of good guy role. And he sort of started off as a bad guy and then ended up as a good guy in his character arc on Magnum. So
Higgins is a girl in the reboot.
yes, they had to introduce the romantic tension.
See, I haven't gotten there yet.
Rather than bringing the girls to, right, instead of having him bring girls to the estate and hide them, they just built one in.
There's one there. Yeah. So far, you know, I've watched it. I've enjoyed it. If they don't end up in a relationship, don't tell me, but if they don't, it's fine. I almost would prefer it if they don't. Like, just let them be good partners. It's fine.
Yeah, X-Files was better when they were not romantically involved, which is
okay.
my favorite show. So.
All right. I remember watching that a little bit in the, late 80s, early 90s, maybe?
That would have been something if you watched it in the late 80s.
When was it? That's my memory, is it was on in the 80s.
Started in 93, I believe.
Oh, no, it couldn't have, because it was on, no, you're wrong, because it was on before we left for the UK.
Not Twilight Zone.
No, X-Files. It was on before we left for the UK.
Well, then you left in 93.
Yeah, but it was on for a while.
X-Files, 1993, drama, 11 seasons.
93.
1993.
No, I know. That doesn't seem like that could be right, because it was well established before we left the States.
You know, sometimes our mind does funny things.
It does. Sometimes our minds do funny things.
1993 was the first year that I understood what year it was.
That's pretty good.
I was in kindergarten. They taught us it was 1993.
Oh, my.
They taught you years.
It was in the previous century.
It was in the previous century, and I was 32. Oh, my. Yeah. But actually, you can make old jokes all you want, because I feel really good. I don't have any pain anywhere at this moment.
Slow down.
So,
Take it easy. Don't say that out loud.
well,
You know, I'm not superstitious,
yeah.
but I am
I'm
a little
bit
stitious.
stitious.
And you shouldn't say that kind of stuff out loud.
You're not superstitious. You're just stitious.
I'm a little stitious.
That's one of my favorite lines in the whole show.
It might be my favorite line.
Yeah, I'm not superstitious, but I carry a rabbit's foot just in case. Oh my! So yes, the police have a rule that you never say it's quiet tonight when you're
You just did
on the patrol
You
car.
just said it about your body.
Yes, and then they generally think that then the radio's going to start, and then you'll be busy and things will go south. Anyway, I don't know if that's true.
I always wonder why that's code for bad, because I like it in the South. There's good food. I think we should
Go south.
We should go Kyperian and redeem that phrase. Going south is a good thing.
Going south. Well, there's a difference between going south and going to the South.
Okay, fair.
To a certain degree, some of these expressions are unfortunate. If your name is John,
I don't believe in fortune.
So. Well, and Harrison doesn't believe in influence. So pretty soon we're not going to have any words left.
Yep. We need like 4 ultimately. That's all.
I think I would find it very difficult to do a podcast with the vocabulary that would be left over. It would sound like some of the sports talk programs that I listen to.
Pear-shaped. I like that. This going pear-shaped.
Pear-shaped.
I don't know why that's bad, but I like that.
Never heard it, and I think that refers to a body type.
See, I don't know that to be the case, but as soon as you said it, this is where things have got to. As soon as you said pear-shaped, I thought, body shaming people are going to come for you.
Sideways. How about sideways?
The first thing that pops up is
going
body.
sideways.
Oh, yeah, going sideways. Yeah, going sideways. That's a good one. So I have a rant before we get serious here.
I love it.
Turn signals. Hang on a second here. People, use your turn signals. Okay, I feel better. Especially it's so bad out here. I understand why people don't do it at home in Nebraska, because a lot of people come to the big city or the medium-sized city from small towns. And in small towns, on the plains, people regularly don't use their turn signals because
you don't need to.
You don't need to. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows where everybody
That's
lives.
Right. It's a little bit insulting if you use a turn signal because it might imply that the person behind you doesn't know you and where you're going and what you do at 3:00 on Tuesdays. I mean, everybody knows that,
That truck turns there. We all know that. He don't need no signal.
See, this is beautifully congruous to what we were just saying, because when Sarah moved to Birmingham and we were riding somewhere together and she needed to get over, right? She was driving. I was in the passenger seat. She's like, I need to get over. We're on the interstate. Why don't you put on your turn signal?
She didn't think of it.
She grew up in California. Nobody let you over. I said, just put on your turn signal. She did it.
I think that's a good point.
Space opened up. She moved right over. I said, that's because we're in the South where people are decent.
Yeah, exactly. I do think that is true, that people give up on turn signals because they don't think it does any good. And so they just don't use them. That and left turns. Californians do not understand how to negotiate an unprotected left turn, right? If you're facing each other, you both make your left turns. You don't pull into the middle of the intersection and just look at each other, right? Or wave at each other. You go first. I don't trust you. That sort of thing. Unprotected left turns are a disaster in California. I think it's because they killed the driver's education. Public education is so bad now across the country that they don't even do driver's ed. We sat at the machines and we got lectured and we got taken out, and Mr. Lutke, sat over there and with the brake pedal on his side of the passenger side, and we were taught all these things. These are the rules. This is what you do. And California is full of people who've never had driver's ed. That's what I think. That's part of it. California has got a lot of people who learn to drive in a field, which is where I learned to drive. But Grandma also said, when I crowded the center line, she said, you better get over. Somebody's going to make you get over. So I did learn. Right.
She had a deep voice.
Well, not quite that deep. You better get over.
You better get over. They're going to make you get over.
Grandma's voice wasn't.
Okay, Grandma.
Okay, Grandma. You better get over. I can't do Grandma's voice, but that's what she said.
It's got to be higher pitched than that first shot.
That's true.
Your grandmother was actually Batman.
That was a deep grandma voice.
That's right. My grandmother was Batman. Yeah. Everybody loved Grandma. She had the gift of likability. So I miss my grandma. She was sweet. Because all the ne'er-do-well family members ended up with grandma. She would take you in, which she did, bless her heart. So anyway, how are you boys?
Here we are, kicking along, doing our best. Yeah.
It's been one of those weeks, honestly, people.
Yeah. In all honesty and transparency, I've had better weeks than the one I've had. But that's okay. It was good to laugh just now. I feel
much better.
Bolstered. Coming into this defeated, a little bit deflated, but and just lots going on. But that's okay. That's the cards were dealt sometimes. But
yes, see, that's an interesting metaphor. That's ministry. So the wonderful thing about being a minister is you can tell yourself, you know what? This is Jesus' church, and I just work here. He can do what he wants. So yeah, I take great comfort in that. I'm not the CEO. I'm just a servant. And the Lord has his purposes for all the things that he does in the church. I give him advice all the time. I make requests. I send him memos. And then he gets to decide what he wants to do with his church. And it's all for the good. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't make any mistakes.
Yeah, it's mine that I worry.
Yeah, so it's a challenge in ministry because there's so much that, in an ordinary business, right? The person, you have a person in charge of a business or an organization, and if things aren't going well, then, you make changes. But in the church, it's a lot more complicated. You can't just make changes, right? You have members in the congregation who are creating issues, and you can't just fire them. I mean, the church growth people think you can get on the bus or get run over and all of that stuff. But in the church, you just have to work with the people that God sends you.
Actually, to be clear,
which is a great joy.
The deflating things have not been necessarily anybody's fault.
No, I'm just making,
and certainly not in my congregation. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah. We're not talking about any particular congregation, just life and ministry in general. It's the way it is. So
your weaknesses weigh with you more heavily some days than others.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, we've talked about this before when I get out of the pulpit, I just think, all right, where's the trap door? Somebody pull the lever. I want to go down the trap door. No, we've had that conversation before. How is fatherhood, McScottrick?
So good.
You actually look a little more rested than you did the last time we talked.
Well, it's impossible not to be.
Yeah, exactly. Since you didn't have any rest at all.
She is great. I love her. She is beautiful.
Oh, good.
She's almost perfect.
Oh, good. That's great. How's the sleeping going? How's her sleeping going? Which tells us something about your sleeping.
Yeah, I mean we're getting into the groove, I think.
Okay.
So, yeah, getting 4 hours in a row, which I'm happy about.
Oh, 4 consecutive hours. That's pretty good.
5 sometimes.
Hey, that's more than I get. So that's great.
How many babies do you have?
I have none.
Shoot.
So, yeah. All right. Good for you.
Thank you.
That's good. Mama's okay?
She's so good. She's so good at it.
Great. That's wonderful. All right, boys. Are you ready to open the mail coffer?
Yes.
All right, let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
There we go. Reach in here.
Well, let's read some emails, shall we?
Oh, I think that's a good idea. Let's see. This is from Derek. This is from Derek. This is the setup here is a little long. Hi, Dr. Clark et al. And he actually said Super Friends at the top. He had a heading. So you guys are et al.
And
I've been called worse than that.
Which is an abbreviation for, right? It's a Latin.
And others.
And others, yeah. So you are and others. I think that's hilarious. All right. I have a question that has been percolating in my mind for some time. My wife and I became Christians before we were married some 42 years ago. Oh, God bless you. We raised 4 children, all who professed faith in Christ in or before their teens. All are happily married and have blessed us with 12 grandchildren. That's amazing. The 2 youngest families are solid in their faith, involved with the church, pray together, etc. The 2 older families have fallen away from the church and basically live secular lives. My question relates to what is the spiritual role of a parent in the lives of grown children and in our grandchildren? When we are with the 2 older families, there does not seem to be any desire to discuss spiritual things except at a superficial level. I talk freely to the grandchildren about things of faith, and there is interest, and we have good discussions. However, their parents appear to be totally apathetic. I want to take them and shake them to get them to realize that there's no neutral spiritual ground. The flesh, the world, and the devil are all about tempting even the strongest Christian families, let alone those who have a secular upbringing. This is even magnified more in our society where abortion, assisted suicide, debauchery, trans, and DEI culture is the norm. As you can imagine, we pray for them daily. Is there a way to address the situation without affecting our relationships? Your godly wisdom is welcomed. All right, boys. This is an easy one. We should be able to knock this one out quickly. What do you say to mom and dad, some of whose kids have walked away, apparently, from the faith and are not raising their own children in the faith?
That's a tough one. I'm interested to hear y'all's wisdom. I'm going to throw this one your way because you guys are more wisdomous.
Well, there's 2 questions that are here. One is, what's the role? By that, I kind of take them to be asking, how much are they supposed to do? What's the responsibility? And then the second one at the end is there a way to address the situation without affecting the relationship? In the broadest sense, to the last one there, I almost want to say, well, no, but that doesn't mean for the negative. It could affect it for the positive. It's, bringing these things up is probably going to change dynamics in some way. I don't know that if we're prayerful and hopeful, not belligerent and antagonistic, I don't know that we should assume that means it will ruin the relationship. But, somebody shared when I was early, in taking my faith seriously, and I was in a college ministry that had a priority and emphasis on personal evangelism. And one of the anecdotes that was shared with me was, I've never regretted the times that I have shared my faith, but I've regretted the times that I haven't.
Yeah.
And that's not to say every single moment, because this is, a situation of kind of constant ongoing exposure. That's not to say, look, every single time you just lead with that.
Yeah. You don't want to become a pest where you're harassing people. But
it is to say, if you never say anything, you will probably come to regret that.
So one thing that I noted, he says that they pray. That's the first thing to do, is to call on the Lord. These are covenant children, presumably who are baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, over whom promises were made. And those are promises that you can claim. God has said, I will be a God to you and to your children. And that promise doesn't just expire at age 18 or whatever.
And all 4 children professed faith in Christ.
They all professed faith.
It says.
So if they're wandering, so that also raises another option that didn't come up in the email, but that would give a natural opportunity to have some pretty serious discussions, and that is church discipline. If there are children, if you have covenant children who made profession but are wandering and no longer attending to the means of grace, and whose profession of faith is either in a genuine question or who have openly repudiated the faith, then those people need to face, the correcting, loving, patient ministry of the church, which is church discipline, which begins initially with a discussion with the consistory. You get called into consistory, or maybe before that even, an elder and or pastor visit, where they come and say, listen, we noticed you haven't been attending church, or we've been told that you no longer profess faith. Whatever the situation is, usually those 2 things go together. And you say, well, what's going on? Let's talk about this. This is significant. You stood up before the church and before Christ, and you took vows as a conscious, intelligent young person, right? Nobody held a gun to your head, and you said, I believe these things, and I'm submitting myself to the discipline of the church in case I should become delinquent in faith or life, doctrine or life, you said in your vows. I'm submitting to the government of the church, so we're here to fulfill our part of that vow. Right? We have a responsibility. And you go from there. So we shouldn't think of church discipline as punitive, right? The Belgian Confession says for the correcting is what the French text says. There is a translation out there that says punishing. I think that might be Schaff. Just, I think, a very poor translation. It's for correcting. And so when people are wandering, maybe they're busy making money. That sometimes happens. One of the reasons why Jesus said it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom is because wealth is a real temptation. It's a trap. You spend all your time and energy making money, being successful, having a nice house in the suburbs. And there's nothing wrong with those things, right? I live in the suburbs. We've worked hard to make this a decent place. We wanted our kids to have a nice house, a decent house, and a decent neighborhood in which to grow up. That's fine. But if that becomes your be all and end all to the expense of your faith and your children's faith, well, then you've got an idol, and that needs to be challenged. So it's an act of love. So prayer and church discipline. It may not, in fact, mom and dad, be on you entirely to address this. You have a role. You can certainly say, listen, we were there when you were baptized. We were there when you made profession of faith, and we're concerned about your spiritual condition. I know that this is uncomfortable and you don't really want to talk about it, but we would like to talk about it if you're willing. And if they're not willing, then at that point, then you go to the consistory and you say, your elders, and you say, we're going to put this in your court, man. By the way, why haven't you done anything about this? I know a case where a consistory knew of a covenant child whose profession they had heard, simply refused to do anything about it, right? They were negligent. So that happens sometimes. Church discipline is an act of faith. It's trusting that the Lord knows what he's doing, just kind of what we were talking about before, and that he'll use us. And I've seen it. I've seen where the Lord uses discipline, where somebody cared enough to risk disapproval, right? It doesn't always go the way we'd like. And by the way, I'm not talking as if I've never been through this process. I've been through this process a few times. I know what it's like to sit across from somebody and be told to pound sand, right? It's hard. It's a hard conversation, but it has to be done because you never know what the Lord will do. The Lord may use that to soften hearts. And
I mean, sometimes people end up very, very angry, not just, I don't care, but I mean, I've been in that situation where someone refuses to repent of open sin.
Mm-hmm.
These were not gray areas.
No, I've been in that very situation,
And they're angry,
Yep.
That we wouldn't give them the supper. But, so what's the spiritual role? Well, you've hit some really important aspects that, pray, continue to pray, go to your church and get involved with your church leaders into, what's their part, what's your part in relation to them? How do you work together for these things?
Yeah.
I would think one thing, too, is don't change course in your own faithfulness because you think it might help if you don't have obvious fingerprints of faith on your life. I'm thinking of an instance. I worked with another pastor for a few years, who by all counts was a wonderfully godly man, had pastored countless people, and real servant of the Lord and his church. Respect him tremendously. His child had walked away, and I remember I ended up at his house for dinner one evening, and his child did too, and we didn't pray before we ate. I mean, it was kind of an awkward, I felt, at least odd, and I mean, I knew exactly what was going on. Like, they didn't want to pray because that might...
They didn't want to make the child feel uncomfortable.
Oh, make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I came away from that sad, in many ways, but also thinking that was capitulation beyond what is helpful.
Yeah.
That wasn't being simply respectful. It wasn't just minding,
Your P's and Q's.
Yeah, that was capitulation. And, that sort of thing, that will not help. If we let our lives cave to accommodate somebody else's unbelief, if their unbelief, takes over the way that we live before the Lord.
Yeah, you lost already.
Yeah, that isn't the way to go. Now, that is not in the territory of how often do I speak, how aggressively do I evangelize. We're not in that territory in what I'm saying right now. I'm just saying in the normal things you do to be faithful. Well, don't let what they would prefer overtake you on that ground. If you quit going to church because that might bother them or interfere with something they've planned or something like that, well, then we've lost. You can find certain boundaries, but don't give up your own life of walking with the Lord because you think that somehow might help, because I don't think it will.
Yeah.
There is an article on the Heidel blog that parents, if you're struggling with children who are covenant children, particularly, but who've walked away from the church and from the Lord, this article is by Tony Phelps, Phelps. Easiest way to find it is to go to heidelblog.net/contributors and click on Tony's profile there, and that will bring up his articles, although there's quite a number of those. So another way to do it would just be to search for this title, use the search bar, Grace for Parents of Prodigals. Maybe we could add that to the resources of the show too. But this is by Tony Phelps, and it's a wonderful article. In fact, we loved it so much that we actually put it in a little booklet in which we have a couple of other essays. Well, we don't mail this out, so because we just don't have the staff, the funds, the facilities to do that. But we hand it out at conferences and things. It's called Heirs of the Promise, Reforming Theology, Piety, and Practice. And that's how much we thought of it. But you can find it online. It's right there. It's easy. It's free. You just have to look for it a little bit. Grace for Parents of Prodigals.
What a guy, Tony. I like Tony.
He's the best.
Anthony.
Yeah. Yes, Anthony.
So what I would say, Derek, is first of all, sorry that you live in Canada. And if you guys could do something about your firefighters, that would be great. Because when I go outside, it is gray. And that is because there are Canadian wildfires that they don't believe in putting out, apparently. So I'm praying that you guys would figure that out. But more importantly, and very seriously, I think we've all dealt with this both in ministry and in our families. I know I deal with it in my family. And it is hard to see prodigal siblings, aunts, uncles. I think we all have dealt with this at one level or another. Remember that God is sovereign and the story isn't done yet. And he may just use that next discussion that you have to, without literally shaking them, perhaps to spiritually shake them and continue to be encouraging. And it's good to hear that you're able to talk to your grandchildren about that. Don't stop doing that. And like Harrison said, don't change the way you do things when they're around. And we don't know all the details, whether or not they go to church, whether or not discipline's actually an option. But I would say just continue to be encouraging, continue to pray for them, and God will take care of things. You don't know the end of the story, so don't give up hope.
That's right. Yeah, that's a really important point. You don't know the end of the story.
And don't assume you know the end of the story.
Yeah, that's right. You just don't.
It's discouraging, but stay hopeful.
Yeah.
Because that will affect the way you discuss things with them. And invite them to church if they're in town. I don't know where they are.
Genesis 18:25.
Which says,
will not the judge of all the earth do what is right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And he will.
We call them prodigals for a reason.
Yeah, he came back.
He came back.
He came
right?
back.
So you have to think about the experience of the dad, right? How agonizing that must have been for dad. Knowing that his kid was out there doing all this stupid stuff, this stuff that would not bring him happiness, the stuff that he thought was going to bring him, fulfillment and all the things that he thought that he needed that he hadn't gotten, only to find out that it brought him nothing but misery And the Lord in that dark place, and Dad had to let him go through that. Dad did not go out there and rescue him. Dad let him go through it. So as one who grew up with drug addicts and alcoholics, one of the things that I learned with that is, and it's gotten a little more complicated now that everything is laced with fentanyl. Don't do drugs, kids, and I'm not kidding about that, right? It's a lot more dangerous now, but you can't fix people. When they're ready to get sober, get clean, detox, all of that, then you can help them. But until they're ready, there's really not a ton you can do. Now, that's from the sort of pagan, secularist, I'd rather say secularist point of view. But there's some wisdom in that. There's some truth in that.
One of the prayers that I have prayed, even out loud, and I think that some people are taken aback and maybe wish I would have prayed something else, but I think I've especially prayed it in these situations where someone is talking about their kids who have professed faith and wandered, and I will pray, God, make them so miserable in their sin.
Yeah, that's right.
That they are ready to come back to grace.
Yeah.
And I understand why it's not our natural inclination, because people say, no, I want my kid to be happy and also to have the gospel. I'm like, yeah, but
outside of Christ, when they're outside of Christ, that I pray that all the time for my unsaved, unbelieving, let's put it that way. Whether they're saved or unsaved yet, that's yet to be known. But unbelieving, unprofessing, friends, neighbors, loved ones, pray for them that the Lord would convict them, the Lord would bring them to their knees, and the Lord would show them the greatness of their sin and misery. How many things are necessary for you to know that in this comfort you may live and die happily? 3 things. First, the greatness of my sin and misery. Second, how I am redeemed from all my sins and misery. And third, how I would be thankful to God for such redemption. But the first thing that we have to know is the greatness of our sin and misery. So there's nothing wrong with praying that someone who's wandering would come to know the greatness of their sin and misery. Again, we're not superstitious. We know the Lord knows what he's doing.
I think that's a great prayer.
Yeah.
That Harrison mentioned he prays. Just real quick, prodigal son. Once he had spent everything, I'm reading from Luke 15:14. When he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. This is what helped him turn and go back home, is that he was so miserable that he was rolling around with pigs and longing to eat their food. That's misery. So I think that's a great prayer.
I had in my memory that there's a form of prayer, but I'm looking for the form. I have an electronic version of the Forms and Prayers book, but it's not turning up right now. The URCNA publishes Forms and Prayers, and it's available through help me, Harrison, is it Great Commission or Great Commissions or Great Commission Publications, GCP?
GCP.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be publication or publications.
I don't know. Great Commission Publication.
It could be great or greats. We don't even need that. Just GCP.
It's a hardbound volume. It's only $8, so they're clearly selling it at cost. It's very nicely done. I recommend that highly. There's a link on the Heidel blog, Forms and Prayers. But I can't find my electronic version and pay attention to you guys. And I need to watch you guys.
And somebody's got to keep an eye on us.
You too. Yeah, Scott has it. Very good.
That's
nice.
it? Okay.
That has it. That if it's in there. So somewhere I have a memory that there's such a form of prayer. All right. Are we ready to go on?
Yes.
Well, I guess it's not my day today. Why don't you walk with me while I go look for my ball? It's going to be a while. On this course, they are not joking when they call it the rough. My golf game is pretty bad. But you know what's really good? The work of the Heidelberg Reformation Association. The HRA produces 5 new articles every week, 5 podcasts a week. We run interesting quotations 6 days a week, and we run at least one video every week from one of our friends. And look for a weekly Heidel video starting sometime this fall. We're thankful for your prayers and your encouragement. But we could use your financial help as well. The HRA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means your gifts are tax deductible. You can make the coffer click by clicking on the donate button or by sending a check to the Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027. Well, what do you know? I found my ball. I think I'm going to let him have that one. Call or text now. 760-618-1563.
All right.
How does the voice swing a golf club?
Well, that's one of the mysteries. He does a lot of things. It's kind of amazing how he flies jets, goes scuba diving.
Spaceships?
Yeah, he was on a spaceship. He's been to Bangladesh, apparently, or someplace on a bus. I'm not sure.
Sorry to hear that.
Where that was. So. All right. This one.
You got some letters.
Is from Matthew. Matthew. I had a friend from Northern Ireland whose son was named Matthew. He was having some digestive difficulties at the time. So,
What?
we have a saying in our house that comes from that experience. Matthew. So Matthew writes, in light of recent events, if a pastor changes personal convictions and is no longer in the mainstream of their denomination, how long should they wait before pursuing ordination in the new one? Should they receive a degree from a seminary in the new denomination? Oh, we probably can guess what the context is for that question, but I think it's an interesting question because we deal with this regularly in our world. We have guys who were formerly sometimes Anglican. I know of one case where a guy was, I think, Orthodox Presbyterian, but don't hold me to that. Became Anglican, realized that that was a mistake. I took a wrong turn, and he came back. And we have cases. I'm working with, to some degree or other, 2 current cases now where people were ministers in Baptist churches, and their churches are, to some degree or other, in the process of becoming reformed, and so now we're one case very clearly working on the questions of ordination and receiving the congregation, and the other one is at a little earlier stage. But some of the leadership of one congregation is becoming reformed, and a lot of the members are becoming reformed in the other case. So these are not theoretical questions; these are live questions. The second one is a little easier than the first, the second part of the question. Should they receive a degree from a seminary in the new denomination? I would think that's a matter for an ecclesiastical body to decide through an examination.
That's what I was going to say, is that at least in Presbyterian Reformed, polity, our ministerial credentials are held by the presbytery or classes. And so it's not an academic degree. It's not an academic credential that qualifies us to do the job. Now, it's a prerequisite, but it's not that academic credential that puts us in the pastorate. It's passing the assessments and exams of the church.
Yeah.
And we don't have, or at least very few in the P&R world, have denominational seminaries. Yeah. That's definitely an SBC thing. I mean, I know that Covenant Seminary is the PCA's seminary, but outside of that,
the RPs have their own seminary. The RCUS has their own seminary.
Yeah, the one in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
But after that, the ARPs have their own seminary. So, but the OPs do not. The URCs do not. Some of the Korean groups, most of the Korean groups, I don't think have their own seminaries.
What's the ARPs? Erskine?
Erskine.
Yeah, the Associate Reformed Presbyterians. Yeah, Erskine.
And even then, they're not tied to them exclusively.
No, I think that's right.
Whereas, because we have people in P&R churches that go to Gordon Conwell, things like that. And that's a broader, and I don't mean that pejoratively. It's a broader institution, theologically speaking, and that's not a obstacle. So the question is, can you show that you're qualified according to the church's standards? Yeah. And if that's the case, then you don't need another degree just from another seminary.
In the URCs, we say that the minister's credentials are held by their consistory rather than the regional body, which would be classis. But that's some minor difference between the URCs and the capital P Presbyterian denominations.
Interesting. But classis still examines them?
Yes. Yeah, the churches meet together in classis. So classis exists when it meets, but it doesn't exist when it doesn't meet.
Yeah, I knew that you didn't have a regional church when classis is not.
There is no regional church.
It's the United Reformed Church as.
That's right. So the churches meet together to do common business at a regional level and a national level. So we don't, for example, hold worship services when classis meets. We might have a devotional or something, and we don't administer communion because that's not the church. We'd save that for the Lord's Day and the local congregations. But we have a process that we describe as a colloquium doctum. When we receive somebody who's already been ordained in another body.
It's my favorite doctum.
Is a colloquium doctum.
That's the kind. Yep, I like it.
Yeah, it should be your favorite colloquium. That's
doctum. What I meant to say, obviously.
Is a
Come
doctum.
on.
Yeah, it's a learned conversation is what that means. And in that case, the minister would be examined by the classis. And if the minister can sustain the examination, then he's good. One interesting historical precedent that sort of illustrates the way we look at this a little bit, or maybe a couple of historical vignettes. Peter, martyr of Ely, became reformed and was received almost immediately into the Reformed churches. He was reformed theologically for a little while before he entered the Reformed churches, but that was really a matter of geography than anything else.
The best name in the Reformation, right? I mean, we all agree.
Yeah, Pietro.
Nope.
No? Oh, you like Johnny Houselander better?
Harrison knows one.
Taco Haho.
Yes, Taco Haho.
That's not real.
That's
it is. It's in my book.
Yeah, that's Scott's favorite restaurant.
Vanden Honert.
Yes.
Taco Haho Vanden Honert.
Wolfgang Musculus. That's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one.
Very good
Wolfgang
one.
the Muscle. Yeah.
Taco. I think if I, when I retire, I might open a little business called Taco Haho. I'll put one in double hamul just for you, Scott.
Oh man, with the rattlesnakes and mountain lions, you should do that.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Peter Martyr from Ely, Calvin didn't go to seminary. He actually didn't have a proper theological education. He had a humanist education. He had some theological education, but
he had a law degree, didn't he?
He had. Yes, technically he had a law degree. I mean, really, he had a degree in classics.
He knew how to learn.
That's right. But a lot of his theology he taught himself. He probably had a little tutoring from Bootser, but other than that, and he heard some lectures when he was in Paris. But it's not like he went through a prescribed course of study, right, in the theology faculty. Luther was a trained theologian. Calvin was not. Calvin was a humanist.
Calvin's was all very accidental, wasn't it?
He went to college, as we would say. He went to university with an interest in theology. He got redirected to law, which really was classics. No, but and then ended up in pastoral ministry.
I forgot. Are we talking about cool names, or what are we doing? What was the question?
So the question is, what do you do with a man who becomes, let's say, Anglican, right? He's Baptist and he becomes Anglican.
For example,
just
hypothetically,
yes. What should be done in that case? So, in a sense, relative to theological education, I'd say that's up to the receiving body. I wouldn't stipulate that. For example, if a person was trained in the Baptist tradition or traditions and then joined one of the Anglican traditions, became Anglican, that he necessarily would have to go through an Anglican seminary. Might be useful. That is, I don't know if it's a quantum leap, but it's a significant leap. So it might be good to do some preparatory study before entering into the ministry of another tradition that's dramatically different in some ways. I would think.
I think one of the points there is, so, I mean, when we've seen this in the past, and I guess I'm really thinking about this from the receiving end when guys have come from the Baptist world and been Baptist pastors.
The Baptist worlds.
Presbyterian pastors. I don't think it bothers, it has not bothered me that they have gone from being a Baptist pastor pretty quickly to, without transition of just being a church member in a Presbyterian church to being a Presbyterian pastor. That has not bothered me. I think one of the things that sort of sits uneasily with me is when they become Presbyterian and then start lecturing us about what it means to be Presbyterian.
You don't like that?
So, yeah, it feels a little bit like New Kid on the Block, Johnny Come Lately.
Is that not your favorite colloquialism?
It's not. No. It feels not like that much of a learned conversation. So I think the bigger thing is when you make that change, maybe don't have, and I've not seen this to be clear. I've not seen this in the recent events that prompted this conversation. I'm thinking about experience more than what's going on right now. Maybe don't show up in your new tradition and start lecturing them about what it means to be that tradition.
Yeah, presumption is a thing, right? So you don't want to be presumptuous. So what about the first question? If a pastor changes personal convictions, how long should they wait before pursuing ordination in the new one? And I think, again, that's a matter for the receiving body to decide. But I think it gets to a deeper question, which is how long should a person live in the receiving body before they are taken in as a minister? Because this is a real issue, and it's a significant practical issue. For example, I know a congregation where almost none of the people had ever seen an infant baptism, and the ministers had never seen or done an infant baptism, but they became reformed. So they had to mechanically, how do we do this? What does this look like? Especially in the case that they had about 150 children, I think, something like that they had to baptize. And I was there for the first, let's say, batch of baptisms. And it was really amazing. And I think they did it very well. But there are issues that they have been facing over the last 2 or 3 years that really come down to the fact that they didn't grow up in this tradition. They'd never been or hadn't been to very many consistory meetings, right? And so there's a way of doing things in the Reformed world. There's a process. There's Robert's Rules of Order, which can be unfamiliar to people. That we to some degree we follow those. There's a church order, and in some ways we're learning on the receiving end. We need to be paying more attention to our church order ourselves, right? You tend to have a working knowledge. We know Article 42 or Article 37. We do that all the time. Well, here's this other one that we hadn't paid attention to that actually would have helped us with this situation. But it takes time to sort of assimilate and learn the unspoken things, the customs, the practices, things that aren't necessarily written down that you learn from experience. So that's why the great thing about internships when you're in seminary is that you get to go live in a Reformed church for a little while. And that's particularly valuable. And maybe you do it for a year where you really have some experience in the life of the church, and you could take that knowledge with you when you go into ministry on your own. So those are issues.
Related to that, may I add something?
Certainly.
If a pastor changes personal convictions and is no longer in the mainstream of their denomination, how long should they wait before pursuing ordination in the new one? So that first part, I would like to encourage anybody who may have changed their convictions and is sticking around in their denomination, don't do that. If you have changed your personal convictions, tell people as soon as it happens. Do not stick around because it's only going to cause problems, whether you know it or not. Let's say you're in a Baptist church and you become Presbyterian. That's going to rub off on people, whether you know it's happening or not. So as soon as you change those convictions, you need to let people know. And there is a process, at least in the PCA, for doing that. You do it as soon as possible. So that's my encouragement. If for anyone listening out there who has changed their convictions and is still in their previous denomination, let people know.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, especially when there's an established process for it and you agreed to that process going in. In the case that these are the cases that I've been dealing with now for a number of years, more than a decade in some cases. I probably worked with, 5, 6 congregations, I don't know anymore, where you have essentially independent Bible churches that don't really have a church order, they don't have a denomination, they don't have a process, and the church typically believes whatever the minister believes. Maybe they have bylaws. So that's an interesting question. What happens when a guy comes out of, as has happened, dispensational seminary and actually begins reading the Reformed texts to which his prof referred in class and sits down, reads them and realizes, oh, holy mackerel, I agree a lot more with these Reformed guys than I do with what I heard in seminary.
Yeah, a lot of Calvary Chapel guys go through that.
A lot of Calvary Chapel, if it wasn't for Calvary Chapel, there'd be many fewer Reformed people in Southern California. Southern
California, that's right.
Because they go to the Calvary Chapel Bible College. I know one young man who's now not so young anymore, but when I first met him was a young man. They kept talking about Martin Lloyd-Jones and other figures and went to the library, started reading them and said, ooh, I like this. I think this is more biblical, and ended up becoming Reformed. And that's happened a lot. Thank you, Chuck Smith and the good folks in Calvary Chapel for supplying us with some wonderful people. That seems to me a little bit more complicated situation. There may be a case for just moving on and leaving that congregation, to be what it was.
Yeah. Put your cards on the table, though. Don't keep that from people and continue to minister in that denomination is my encouragement.
Yeah, I think that's right. In some cases, I've seen where the elders, the leadership, have become Reformed and then brought the congregation along. And that's a long, slow process, by the way. And not something you can do in a couple of weeks.
That is so cool when that does happen.
Some of that probably depends on, is this an independent church?
That's right. Yeah, these independent Bible churches is what I'm thinking of.
I think that's a question to ask. Like, if I'm in a congregation that belongs to a wider denomination, and I've changed my convictions, that's probably an instance of...
Yeah, that's right.
I move on.
That's a different case.
Yeah.
Those bodies have a process, right? They recognize that sometimes ministers change their views. The Synod of Dort stipulated that. If your views change, you have a responsibility to notify your elders and classes, and you need to spell out how your views have changed since you took your ordination vows, so they can judge whether these things are material changes or whether they're unimportant. I think that's right. Yeah, you want to be honest. Duplicity is not a good way to be conducting your ministry in duplicity.
Yeah, be honest.
Yeah, honest. In Hamul. Yes, particularly in Hamul, you should be honest.
You should definitely be honest there.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by HeidelbergReformationAssociation.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast, the Heidelcast.